It's often said that Japanese is one of the hardest languages to learn, with 3 alphabets, over 2,000 kanji characters, formal, informal language, pitch accent, and endless cultural nuances. So is it possible to master this language? Well, I think I'm pretty decent at Japanese. A lot of people ask me how I learnt Japanese, and I realized I've never shared my story before. So that's what we're gonna do today. And at the very end of the video, I'm gonna share some tips on how you can learn Japanese as well. Let's get right into it. Konnichiwa! Learning Japanese has been a huge part of my life ever since I took myself on this language learning journey. And you could say that I was literally obsessed from the very beginning. It all started when I was in high school and I was very much into Japanese fashion, music, pop culture, anime. But I realized I wanted to study the language. However, my high school didn't offer it, so I kind of moved high schools for the last 2 years, my senior 2 years. I moved to a new place, and that's because they offered Japanese. Turns out, as soon as I enrolled, they were like, yeah, there's not enough students who signed up. There were only 5 of us. So the principal was like, yeah, we're cutting it. And obviously I've already moved, and I'm like, what? No way this can happen. So we all kind of rallied up together and we were begging, we're like, please keep Japanese. Obviously, worked out and we got to start studying. Woohoo! Step 1 achieved. And this is where I learned all the basics: hiragana, katakana, as well as kanji, basic grammar. And I am so relieved because oftentimes when people start their Japanese journey, they come to Japan and they're in these language schools where everything is already immersion, like all in Japanese. But for me, it was because I was doing it for my higher school certificate in Australia and we were taught in English. Phew, that relieved me so much because I couldn't imagine learning a language in that said language to begin. So that was a really great thing in the beginning for me. I had the time to understand the concepts in my native language and then kind of put the pieces together. And of course, like learning the basics like the katakana and hiragana, which if you don't know are the Japanese alphabets, the first 2 that you'll learn, and they are so crucial. So spend a lot of time learning it. People say you can learn it in like a day. No, it took me 2 weeks to like get a rough idea. But then, you know, it probably took me months to actually really have it memorized, where if I look at it, I instantly recognize it. So I recommend putting a lot of time into learning that at first, so you get the basics right, and down the line, your life is a lot easier. And then throughout this course, it was about 1.5 years, we covered probably not quite all of N5, but a reasonable amount of grammar and whatnot. And at first, like, I remember my learning strategy was not the best because I would just memorize everything. So we had a speaking exam, and I still remember so clearly, I memorized every answer in order. It was like, you know, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do on the weekend? And of course, the teacher quizzed us and it was totally out of order. And my brain couldn't function. It was like, we only memorized it if it was in order. So now that it's out of order, I couldn't answer any of the questions. I don't know if I failed that speaking test, but I certainly didn't get a good score, even though I'd put in the work. I have to mention that in my class, the other students were all international Chinese students. And what that means is they know all the kanji, so I was severely disadvantaged and they were like blitzing through, and the teacher was just like really patient with me, where I'm like, oh, what is this character? What are all these strokes? So that was definitely the hardest thing for me at first, like keeping up with the classmates who already knew thousands of kanji. Having classmates who are really good at kanji though did motivate me to try and keep up, so that was great. And I still have very vivid memories of just shopping around in Sydney with my mum on the weekend, and I came across a store that had like a Japanese shirt and it had some sort of character on it. It was probably hiragana. And I was like, Mum, I can read it. And that was one of my favorite things at the beginning of my journey, where I just saw things in the wild and I recognized it. And I felt so proud, a sense of accomplishment that what I was learning, I was seeing in the real world, and it just solidified everything as well, even though I was struggling in class and everything. Luckily for me though, my high school had a sister school located in Chiba Prefecture, right next to Tokyo. And they had like this kokan ryugaku, which is a school exchange where I could go abroad to Chiba and a Japanese girl could come stay and be with my family in Sydney. Of course I signed up for it. No one else signed up for it. I was like, you guys are crazy. This sounds like an awesome opportunity. And I got paired with the coolest Japanese girl ever, Nozomi. She's been in a few videos on my channel and we are like literally besties now, but she stayed with my family for 6 weeks and she learned English, and then I went to Chiba to stay with her family as well as 2 other families for 6 weeks. And this is when my Japanese just kind of like shot up, like it excelled, because I was just thrown in the deep end. I remember this exchange, I went there being like, watashi wa samui desu. Watashi no shumi wa saka to sumingu desu. Like, this is very basic, stiff Japanese, but because I was just like immersed with all these other young girls at school, I just picked up how they were talking. When I came back home, I excelled so much more because I wasn't talking like I memorized sentences from my textbook. I was actually using natural Japanese. So for me, I was really lucky to have that opportunity to study abroad when I was just starting my language journey. It had such a big impact on, I think, my whole language journey. Because you just pick up things like, for example, I'd just be like, samui ne, or tanoshii, you know? Whereas like when you're learning Japanese, it's a very weird language because the way it's structured, it doesn't make sense to English speakers where you're dropping watashi all the time and you're just saying like fun. You wouldn't just be like fun in English. Whereas in Japanese, like it's super natural to be like, tanoshii, mecha tanoshii ne. So for me, coming back, I excelled in speaking a lot more after that exchange because I just knew how to form my own thoughts without just memorizing it. So yeah, that was an awesome experience and I got a taste for Japan and boy did I love it. I had a blast. It's still one of my favorite ever experiences in Japan. Also, throughout my years in high school, I consumed so many J-dramas. I was a J-drama girly. I watched Hana Yori Dango, Hana Kimi, Kazoku Game, Ichi Ritoru no Namida, and I was listening to Japanese music. Of course, my gal, Keri Pami Pami, as well as Perfume, Momoiro Kuroba. I was consuming Japanese in every way possible. Did I understand what I was consuming? No, but I was just exposing myself to it non-stop. So that's what I'm saying. I was obsessed. That really helped me have like a constant like stream of like Japanese entering my life, like on a daily basis. And while I was watching, I was actively listening out for phrases that I had learnt in my school textbooks or in class so that I could like have that click moment where I'm like, oh my God, I learned that. And these are people are saying it. Like, you know, it doesn't even have to be something super difficult. It could have just been like, suru koto ga suki desu, you know, some sort of grammar or vocab I heard. And then it would solidify it in my memory. So if you're in the beginning stages, I highly recommend doing that. Don't watch passively, watch with intention. Back when I was watching all these Japanese shows online, it was really hard and I wish I had something to help me learn the language while I was watching along. I'm really excited to announce that I'll be partnering with one of the best Japanese learning programs out there and one that I find personally super beneficial. This is Migaku. Migaku is a powerful tool that comes with a Chrome browser extension and an app. It helps you seamlessly study and learn Japanese from websites, videos, games, books, and literally any learning source you can think of. It has a number of different features, but my personal favorite is definitely where you can enable a convenient subtitle feature on websites such as Netflix, Disney+, YouTube to watch all my favorite Japanese shows and dramas. So how this works is while you're watching these videos, with a click, you can look up the translation and definition of a word you don't know, as well as the pronunciation, capture the image, and have the example sentences saved, with it being linked to popular online dictionaries like jisho.org, one that I personally love to use and have been using for years. Here is an example of one I found on Netflix while watching a TV show. This feature is so convenient and fills the gap in my Japanese knowledge. You can also from here create vocab decks from the words that you're learning that are saved and use this as a vocab flashcard with the spaced repetition system to track your progress. PS, if you have your Anki deck, you can integrate that into Migaku as well. You can also use Migaku on your phone to watch YouTube and create flashcards without your laptop as well. Even if you don't use flashcards, it's nice having all the vocab nicely summarized and organized in one location to look back on. Of course, if you're at the very beginning of your language learning journey, Migaku also offers comprehensive language courses that focus on grammar, vocab, and cultural nuances to kickstart your Japanese learning journey. They teach you right from the fundamentals, including hiragana, katakana, kanji, and essential vocabulary, all with structured guidance and in manageable steps. The course goes all the way up to advanced levels as well. Migaku also includes a custom dictionary app with an OCR feature that makes reading so much easier. Imagine taking photos and getting text using a live translator. It's as easy as that. And Migaku also utilizes AI-powered functions to provide personalized recommendations to match your level. So for example, smart flashcards, adaptive exercises, and suggesting content for you. One convenient feature that I love on the app is where you can take photos of things and it will translate it for you. So in my daily life, when I'm shopping for food or something, I will be like, oh, I don't know what that kanji is or what that ingredient is. And I'll take a photo and it will give me not just the translation, but I can like save the vocab and then get the furigana as well as the definition and other examples, which other programs I don't offer that. Well, not in my experience. So that is really convenient. I'm actually using Migaku in my daily life now, and I really wish I had it at the beginning of my language learning journey. Would have been really helpful, but that said, I think anyone can benefit from it, from a casual learner, an advanced student, to someone just wanting to brush up on their language skills. I really can't recommend it enough, and that's why I'm super excited to share that I have an exclusive offer just for you guys watching right now, where if you want to get a lifetime plan, it'll be 50% off, or if you want to just get a standard or early access plan, you'll get an additional free month included. PS, if you're keen to learn a language other than Japanese, any Migaku subscription includes access to learning these languages as well. All right, back to my story. At the end of my high school program, I was probably about like N5, not quite N4, like somewhere in between. But this was just the beginning of my really long language journey. Naturally, I went to university, majored in Japanese alongside economics. And this is where I would develop a pretty decent skill level for Japanese, like an intermediate level, because I just had a lot of time to invest in it and I had a lot of opportunities to use it. My first year at uni, we used the Genki 2 textbook, which is one of the most popular ones out there. And I really liked it personally. I'm a big textbook girly, by the way. I have bought a lot. And we also had like additional materials that the sensei lecturers prepared. And my classes were like a lot bigger in size because I went from about 3 people, because 2 people dropped out at high school, so it was just 3 of us, to like 30 per lecture. And per week, I think we only had 2 or 3 classes and each one was like 1 hour long. So there wasn't a lot of actual like teaching time, but that's how like the course was structured. Of course, I was learning Japanese through my course, but that wasn't enough for me. I was obsessed. So every moment I was on the bus, I was doing flashcards. When I was back home, I was watching more J-dramas. I was constantly learning Japanese, and I think my self-studying habits and practices really helped me learn a lot faster than maybe people who weren't doing that. So that is one of my tips, like be obsessed with the language. That said, I think I also put myself out there to really try and make Japanese friends, and luckily I lived in Sydney, which is quite a multicultural place, and there's a lot of Japanese people who come to my uni to study abroad. But I went into the Japanese Cultural Appreciation Society, which was called Wasabi. I know it's kind of a lame name, and I made some like Japanese friends from the events they held, as well as other people interested in Japan. But there were a lot of like working holiday Japanese people who would come to Sydney, and the Wasabi group, like people initiated this pool night at like a pub in Sydney, and every Thursday night, I think it was, I would go there and there would be so many working holiday Japanese people. I guess it was like a Facebook group and one person invited all of them, and I met lots of Japanese friends there, and I was constantly exposing myself to Japanese culture and Japanese language and learning and learning and learning. And of course I made really cool friends who I got to hang out with on campus. But this is so important when you're learning a language, just going and finding these like opportunities to use the language. I was obsessed with finding other ways to improve my Japanese, and I came across this website called Wanikani, which translates to crocodile crab, kind of weird. And that was like one of the best ways to learn kanji and vocab, and it still is a really popular online website. I unfortunately dropped it after a year or so, where I went to study abroad and I couldn't keep up with the reviews that kept coming in. So I got to level 22, but I restarted using it about a month ago and I'm obsessed. I do it every morning and it's a great way to just get my Japanese, my brain going every morning. So highly recommend if you're in the beginning of your Japanese language learning journey to get on Wanikani. I mentioned that I made a few Japanese friends, and while I did, a lot of them had to leave after a month or 2 and go back to Japan. So I wanted to keep using my Japanese more and more, and came across an app called Hello Talk where I could connect to Japanese people living in Japan or around the world. And I love this app so much because they had like they still have this, a timeline feature where you can like update your daily life and then people will correct your language mistakes. Such a good learning resource, and you can also make friends, chat with them. And through this app, I made a lot of Japanese online friends who I would start to call on the phone. I love calling people in general. Like I've always been a phone caller since like I was in primary school. I'd call my friends after school for hours, and then so the idea of me practicing my Japanese on the phone to people online, I love it. Sign me up. So I was like calling sometimes like 3, 4, 5 hours to like my Japanese friends across the world. So that was kind of crazy. And I think I honestly really excelled and improved my Japanese through those phone calls. So if you like calling people on the phone and like having kind of pen pal online friends, really recommend that. Really recommend it. But be careful, there's like strange people out there. Outside of the typical learning ways, I also did other things like karaoke. I loved going to sing and try and get like the lyrics out of my mouth, but because it really helps with your reading speed if you're doing karaoke, and also seeing the words, the lyrics. Other than that, what else did I do? Oh yeah, I bought a bunch of manga. Luckily, I lived in Sydney and they had a Kinokuniya bookstore, which is a Japanese bookstore, and I would go and buy like Doraemon or Alharairo because they were really easy Japanese learning resources for me at the time, where it wasn't too difficult, I could understand it, and I had that really good feeling of, oh my god, I understand this and I'll learn things from it. Whereas if you pick something too difficult, it's just like a struggle. You're gonna be like, oh my god, I don't want to read this. Whereas for me, it was the perfect level, and I was just like enjoying the story, reading it, and then also feeling that satisfaction of like, I'm studying. After about 2 years of studying at uni, I'd say I was about an N3 level approximately. And I was pretty conversational by then because I'd really focused on speaking Japanese and putting myself in like these situations, right? From there, I had another exciting opportunity where I was selected to go study abroad in Japan. And this was something that was like my dream, to go to university in Japan. A lot of the other students at my uni at USyd, they really wanted to go to like Keio, Todai, Waseda, which are all these prestigious unis. And I was like, I don't want to go and study really hard. I want to have fun. So I applied for a university called Doshisha, which is also very prestigious in Japan, but I wanted a place that had like a focus on Japanese language learning, and their course was really, really good. So for me, that was like my main goal, whereas my peers were more just like, oh, it'll look good on my like resume if I go to Tokyo Uni. But I was like, no, I need to be immersed in Japanese culture and be in Kyoto and have my best life. So I was the only student from my entire cohort of like over 300-400, or maybe even more. No, my entire cohort, like from the entire like Sydney Uni that year, I was the only student who went to Doshisha, and I had the best year of my life. I still think about that year. Like, I've lived in Japan, I've had an amazing time, but that year is just like irreplaceable to me. And it was the year that I really improved my Japanese beyond my imagination. This uni exchange was supposed to only be 6 months, but I extended it to 1 year. And I even picked an actual third major for my degree because I didn't have enough credit points. So I was desperate. I was like, please let me stay in Japan for at least a year. Somehow I made it work. And yeah, I got accepted for a year. When I got to Kyoto Doshisha, they put me in a placement exam. I was gonna be in an intensive Japanese course for the whole year. It's called the Nichibun Center, and it's all for the exchange students who come and study abroad. Now, I got placed pretty high. I think it was like level 6 at the time out of 10 levels, which is you're studying for N2, and my class was all other basically like Asian students, and that means they all kind of knew the kanji. Once again, I was going back to my high school days where I was severely disadvantaged, but it was good. I felt really proud of myself for being placed in a level where not most of the other Westerners were, but it was definitely challenging. And then my speaking, I think I got placed in a level above that. So I don't know if I was like 8 or 7 at the time. And it was because like that was where I excelled. I wasn't the best at like kanji or maybe all the vocab, but yeah, speaking, I just really love to talk to people. So yeah, I had a great time just being able to not study economics, which is not my passion. You know, I'm on YouTube now, not in a bank. So I just had 1 year to really improve my Japanese. And I know I said I wanted to go to Doshisha to just like have a fun time, but I mean like study Japanese and also be social. So that was my goal. I am going to do all my homework, study really hard, but also meet lots of people. And that's what I did. They had this like like it's like the orientation week at the beginning of the year for all the students. They had a lot of different sakura, which are these societies that you can sign up for. I wanted to join as many as I could. So I went and joined a futsal one, a cooking one, as well as an international society. And I made lots of local Japanese friends there. I was also trying to avoid other foreigners because I really wanted to just learn Japanese. That's my biggest piece of advice. If you're going to study abroad, don't be hanging out with other foreigners, at least in the beginning. Like, you need to just like throw yourself in the deep end, make Japanese friends. I knew in order to improve my language skills, getting a part-time job, aka a baito, would be super beneficial. So I think about 2 or 3 months after I arrived, I was at the station and I saw one of those like baitoru books. It's like these magazines they have just placed at the stations, and I grabbed one and I was looking for jobs, and then I went online and I found a really cool job in a traditional geisha district, and I called them, or they called me, and they were like, yeah, come and interview, and they thought I was Japanese on the phone. I was like, I came in person, they're like, who are you? Who's this random white chick? And I was like, sumimasen. But yeah, I got 2 part-time jobs and I worked like a couple of shifts a week for maybe 4 or 5 months while I was there, and that really improved my Japanese. Like going through the process of working in a restaurant, the service industry, it's really intense. You're constantly on your feet thinking, serving customers. I learned a lot of good Japanese for that's like business, but in a more like, not business as in like a company business style, but just like normal everyday formal language. Like you have the keigo and then tameguchi, but I really got to improve, I think, my more formal Japanese, because when I was serving the customers, I had to be like very polite, like here's your meal, or what would you like to order? And my boss was like pretty intense. Like if I made mistakes, he was mad. So, you know, it was a good learning curve. I have stories I will share in the future from that job. But yeah, it was really awesome. I loved working a part-time job, and I highly recommend if you move to Japan, get a part-time job in a Japanese speaking environment. It will improve your Japanese immensely. By the end of my exchange, I had a goal of passing the JLPT N2, and I am a big textbook fan. I know there's teams of like no textbook, pro textbook. I am on this side, pro textbook all the way. So in Japan, textbooks super cheap, at least compared to the Kinokuniya in Sydney. So I bought as many as I could, like Nihongo so matome, kanji drills, literally everything. And I loved going to cafes in my free time and just studying from them and doing past paper exams. So that was another way I supplemented my Japanese study outside of like the curriculum at the university. Everyone studies a little differently, but for me, I really like applying my Japanese straight away. So if I learn something, just immediately using it in like a conversation. But when things don't stick, I like to use sticky notes. I put them everywhere in my room. You can see them behind me here now. It's just how I learn things. This isn't just for Japanese. I did that for my econ degree, but writing things on sticky notes, writing things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That is how I learned vocab and kanji. So even in my room, there would be like, oh, for like cooking, these are the verbs, or in my bathroom, these are the words I need to know. Or if there was like a kanji test coming up, I might put them like next to my toilet, just so I'm always seeing them everywhere. Of course, I love flashcards too, and there were even some flashcards that were waterproof I could have in like the bathtub. So yeah, I just loved constantly like practicing on my way on the go. While I was in Japan, I enjoyed playing video games in Japanese too. I bought a Nintendo DS Lite secondhand for like $30 at Book Off and played Pokemon in Japanese as well as Wind Waker on the GameCube in Japanese. So that was another additional way I was just practicing my Japanese, as well as changing my iPhone settings to Japanese. That's a really basic thing anyone can do at any time, just to really, really immerse myself in the language. So I was obsessed, like I said, just making my whole environment Japanese. And I think this is key to really improving your language skills. Now, I did, spoiler, get my N2 by the end of my exchange, but that's when I stopped studying, and it's been a second. I don't think I've properly officially studied since, which is not great, but I was feeling really good. I was like, got my N2 and I don't need anything else. I've been living in Japan now for 6 years, and the last time I formally studied was back in 2016 for that year abroad at Doshisha. Since then, I haven't touched Japanese really. Like, there have been moments where I was trying to study for the JLPT N1, but I wasn't really doing it long term. Like, I'd do it for like maybe 2 weeks and then drop it because life got in the way. But recently I've been feeling really motivated to pick up my Japanese language skills again and really kickstart things. So that's why I started my Wanikani, and I'm using Migaku, and I'm really trying to improve my Japanese. And that's why I'm excited to share that I'm starting a Japanese only YouTube channel, which is going to be just a little hobby for me. And I think it'll be a great way to see improvement, use my Japanese in the real world, and just have a bit of fun, because that's what language learning is all about, just having fun. And I'm happy that I'm back in a place where I enjoy learning Japanese, because once I got my N2, I felt like all of the Japanese I was learning was just too formal and too rigid for conversations I was having with my friends, because they were like, oh, we don't say that. That sounds like a textbook. And then I just lost all my motivation. But somehow I've come full circle, and living in Japan, I want to really improve again. So my language journey is still halfway, not even halfway, probably just at the beginning, but it has been about 10 years, and I'm really excited to see where this takes me. That said, there is no cheat code and shortcut to getting good at Japanese. You just need to put in the hours and the time and the passion to really improve. And I do believe it's possible for anyone to make it happen. Really, I really do believe that. But in general, I kind of just want to quickly summarize the most important or the ways that I studied in general, and that would be like using a textbook for guidance. This is so crucial. I don't think learning here and there randomly is the best way to go about it. Having like a textbook or a course, so important. Then using online resources to really supplement your learning, such as Migaku, Wanikani, or Hello Talk. Those apps can really help you. Rote learning, so that's how I did it, writing it over and over again. Or if you like doing, online things like Anki, that's also like a form of that, I think. And then supplementing your Japanese language learning resources with hobbies that you enjoy. So putting what you love into that language. So if it's video games, books, music, TV shows, just watch it in Japanese if that's the language you want to learn. It's really gonna push you to the next level, I think. And then of course, interacting and speaking with native speakers, or even like people who can speak Japanese. They don't have to be native, just get out there and use it. So that's kind of my tips, quick tips though. If you want more detailed tips, let me know. I'd love to do a bit of a deep dive on detailed stuff that helped me. But yeah, throughout my time learning Japanese, living in Japan, I've come across some incredible Japanese speakers, and they always humble me. I'm like, wow, I have ways to go. So that is always inspiring for me personally. And I do think the people that I've met who are incredibly good at speaking the language always had a passion, a drive, and probably an obsession with the language. So keep that in mind if you're learning Japanese, and don't be disheartened. Just keep working hard at it. Make mistakes, because without mistakes, you're never going to learn. So yeah, that's the knowledge I impart with you. Does that make sense? Is that grammatically correct? わかんない。っていうことで、最後まで見てくれてありがとうございました。以上です。また日本語の勉強も頑張りますので、よろしくお願いします。またね、もう話せない。すいません。さようなら。バイバイ。